First up, we have approval of our agenda. We can take that by consensus. Are there any additions or changes to our agenda? All right, we'll consider our agenda approved as presented and move on to approval of the January 5th. That should say 2023 minutes, I'm sure.
Oh, whoops.
Who did those?
Which is correct on the minutes, at least. And we can take a motion for those by anybody who was present at that meeting.
I'll move the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeremy, second by Cecily. Are there any corrections to our minutes needed?
Sorry,
All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving our minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. This will bring us to the public invitation portion of our meeting. This is for people to address the commission generally on items not on the agenda. I know we have somebody possibly interested in speaking on something that is on the agenda. We can come back to that possibility later. Is there anyone that had mentioned they wanted to speak for our public invitation portion?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
Except for the one person who contacted us earlier.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to our business item of the day, which is the Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan Amendment for the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board. We have Colin to present. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and Council Member. I am Colin Kelly, Planning Analyst, and I'm here to present the Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan Amendment on behalf of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Tyler Pedersen, Design Project Manager with the Park Board, is here today and may respond to questions at the end of the presentation as needed. While the Council refers to this planning effort by the title you see before you, the Park Board refers to it as the Hiawatha Golf Course Area Plan. These titles should be considered synonymous. The Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan was approved by the Council in 2015. The Hiawatha Golf Course area was specifically excluded from that plan due to the financial separation of regional park spaces and enterprise-funded spaces. The need for a plan focused on the golf course area became more urgent after a devastating flood in 2014 and the discovery of extreme volumes of groundwater being pumped from the golf course. The amendment you see before you today aligns water management with site use, proposes a mix of regional park and enterprise-funded spaces in the golf course area, and is intended to fill the gap in the 2015 park plan. Next slide, please.
Oh. Let's give this to him so he can play.
No,
Good idea.
yeah, certainly don't give it to me.
I wondered why you were looking over this way. I'm like, what?
Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park is located near the center of the regional park system in Hennepin County and South Minneapolis. The maps here are figures 1 and 2 in the staff report. The regional park encompasses approximately 660 acres of land and water, including Lake Nokomis, Lake Hiawatha, and part of Minnehaha Creek. The park is a popular gathering space and is located along the Grand Rounds National Scenic Byway, Minnehaha Parkway Regional Trail, and the banks of Minnehaha Creek. The park provides a wide range of recreational opportunities, including an 18-hole golf course on the west shore of Lake Hiawatha. The golf course and the area immediately surrounding it, covering approximately 150 acres of land, is the focus of this plan amendment. The golf course was once the location of Rice Lake and a connected wetland complex. The lake was dredged and the wetlands were filled in the 1920s, and the golf course was designed and constructed in the early 1930s over the dredge materials. This land is also the original and current homeland of the Dakota people, as a small sign at the Nordic Ski Trailhead reminds skiers and other visitors right now. The Dakota used the wetlands here to hunt waterfowl and harvest rice. Moving into the planning process and partner engagement. Representation on the Community Advisory Committee, or CAC, was one of the first things established at the start of the planning process. Nearby neighborhood organizations, elected officials from the city of Minneapolis and Hennepin County, and Minneapolis Public Schools were all asked to appoint members to the CAC. Logos of many of these organizations and local government units appear on the right side of this slide. Many of these same organizations were also engaged during the development of the 2015 Regional Park Plan. The CAC was made up of 18 people who met 7 times over the planning process to learn about all aspects of the property, past and present, discuss and develop a plan vision, goals, and guiding principles, explore alternatives and options, and provide a plan recommendation to the MPRB. From a plan implementation standpoint, anticipated project partners will include the City of Minneapolis, the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, the Minneapolis Parks Foundation, the First Tee of the Twin Cities, the Low Pit Foundation, Metropolitan Council, Indigenous communities, African American golfers, local school golf teams, golf leagues, and future restaurateurs and concessionaires. I should note, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board of Commissioners approved the Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Plan Amendment at its meeting on September 7th, 2022 via Resolution 2022-269. This is attachment 2 in the staff report. According to the submitted plan amendment, park and trail planning in Minneapolis is rooted in public engagement. It's a process that includes extensive outreach, various input and engagement methods, and plan reviews at key points through open and targeted engagement events. The planning process uses many community engagement methods to gather input from a variety of targeted groups and the public, including several online surveys. Members of the public were also invited to attend and participate in CAC meetings, which included time for public comment. Public attendance at CAC meetings typically range from approximately 40 to 80 people per session. Some comments received and reflected in the plan include preservation of passive open space for informal play and diversifying ecologically driven experiences on the site. The plan also protects existing areas of important habitat that were identified by the public. Community feedback also indicated that increased traffic and on-street parking are concerns. When it was clear that some voices may not be heard through the CAC meetings, the design team added 5 focus group sessions and convened each twice during the project. Those groups included general golfers, African American golfers, people with environmental interests, neighbors living near the golf course, and Indigenous community members. The draft plan was subject to review and comment by the public and a public hearing before approval by the Park Board of Commissioners. According to the Park Board, development of this plan amendment began nearly 8 years ago, predating the enactment of the equity analysis requirement in June 2020. Even so, community and equity make up one of 4 sets of guiding principles for the plan amendment. Community and equity principles include create equitable experiences and spaces that promote community with multi-generational, family-friendly, fun opportunities that are interactive and respectful for all park users. Celebrate history in a meaningful way on the site. Support sustainability in all aspects of the site, including environmentally, culturally, and economically. Reduce barriers and encourage access to a broader set of park users. And minimize negative impacts to the adjacent neighborhood, including consideration of impacts to traffic, parking, and noise. During the planning process, the Park Board also intentionally engaged youth, the Black community, and the Indigenous community. Conversations with African American golfers highlighted the leadership and contributions of Solomon Hughes and Jimmy Slemons. These local golf heroes, Black golfers today, and others pushed to make golf at Hiawatha and elsewhere welcoming, fun, and safe. Notably, the plan amendment also includes a Dakota land acknowledgement inside the front cover, stating that, quote, under the hands of the MPRB, the land changed dramatically and in ways that fail to resonate with the spirit of the Dakota and the honor they bring to the land. In creating a plan to guide the future of this land, we bring good intentions of healing what we have so dramatically disturbed, and with good hearts, hope to restore the vital functions of the land and the water that passes through it. On the last slide, I mentioned the guiding principles specific to equity and community for the Hiawatha Golf Course area. 3 other sets of guiding principles focus on natural resources, recreation, and connectivity. Early in the planning process, the design team worked with the CAC and the public to develop these guiding principles and a vision statement. The project's vision statement guides the overarching direction of the plan. It reads, "The Hiawatha Golf Course property is a unique destination providing a welcoming and equitable park experience for both the surrounding community and regional park users that is ecologically responsible, addresses water management needs, and is respectful of the site's natural and cultural history. Park development will have a long-term focus for year-round passive and active recreation, where golf and other recreation will interface with ecology and art to provide for a flood-resilient design that is accessible, connected, and celebrates the spirit of Minneapolis. The vision and guiding principles will continue to guide the park's role, character, and function as the plan for the Hiawatha Golf Course area is implemented over time." 3 preliminary alternatives were developed based on the vision and guiding principles, public input, identified park system needs, a workshop with park board staff, and a working knowledge of the existing site conditions. The preferred design strives toward a balance of golf and other activities set in a landscape guided by water management. The map you see here is figure 3 in the staff report. According to the park board, the plan accommodates the site's complex water management needs. Improved water management, along with the chance to heal and restore the landscape, is the foundation of the golf course area plan. This includes a reduction in pumping, preservation of the floodplain, improved stormwater management, and creative water reuse for recreation. The development concept includes a 9-hole golf course, driving range, practice facilities, and improved community gathering opportunities. A new golf clubhouse and learning facility, and several other new facilities are included in the plan, including a new park building and a small equipment rental building at the new edge of the lake. The plan also includes a variety of multi-use and pedestrian trails, allowing for a complete loop around Lake Hiawatha and connections to the regional park and neighborhoods, preserved open space, protected existing wildlife habitat, and enhanced winter recreation opportunities. In addition, the plan provides the space and opportunity to celebrate the site's natural and cultural history. New facilities and amenities within the golf course area will be designed to meet the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. In a nutshell, the plan amendment represents a unique opportunity to add new activities within a landscape that places water first and recreation second, creating an elevated place for nature. Then, human activities are added where they do not disturb the core goal of healing and restoration. Future implementation phases, including feasibility and preliminary design and interpretive planning, will include ongoing community engagement. Moving into estimated costs. There are no anticipated acquisition costs associated with the plan amendment. The long-term vision for Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park is to maintain the park with its current boundaries both north and south of Minneapolis Parkway, with no plans to acquire additional land or alter park ownership. The total estimated development cost associated with the plan amendment is $43 million. The plan amendment notes, quote, "The estimated cost of $43 million for plan implementation reflects the cost to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board if no outside funding is available. However, given its location within a regional park and the opportunities to help address regional water management issues beyond the park boundary, this master plan will likely be implemented with funding from both the MPRB and outside sources. MPRB will actively seek grants, collaborative funding agreements, donations, volunteer projects, and multi-agency projects to reduce the total cost to the MPRB. As for estimated operations and maintenance costs, the Park Board estimates $281,000 annually after the anticipated annual revenue of a proposed restaurant and any other enterprises are factored in. Taken together, the total estimated cost associated with the plan amendment is $43,281,000. The rationale for proposed action is that the Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan Amendment is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, particularly Chapter 5, Strategy 1, and other council policies such as those in Thrive MSP 2040. The proposed action before you then is that the Metropolitan Council approve Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan Amendment, and 2, require Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, prior to initiating any project at this location, to send preliminary plans to the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services Interceptor Engineering Assistant Manager. And with that, I will stand for your questions and comments and remind you that Tyler Pedersen is here as well. Thank you.
Okay. We have clarifying questions first. Jeremy.
Yes, on page 12 of the staff report, there is an asterisk on Standish Erickson, and I'm wondering why that is. I couldn't figure it out reading through there a couple times, so if you could help, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pipel, if I am not mistaken, we're talking about the appointments to the.
Correct.
Yes, okay. And in some of these cases, some of those neighborhood associations had appointments and others did not. Why there's one associated with Standish Erickson Neighborhood Association, I will have to phone a friend.
Hello.
Yeah. We have a couple labeled as no appointment made, and one that
Right,
just has an unexplained asterisk.
Yeah,
What does
good
that
point.
mean?
I'm looking at that. Tyler, you got any insights? Yeah, here you go. Here we go. I think that was just left over, but.
Oh, and please state your name so she can record it for our minutes.
Thank you, Chair and Commission members. My name is Tyler Pedersen. I'm a design project manager with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. To answer your question, the items with the asterisks, that might have been a leftover piece of text there. There was a representative from Standish Erickson Neighborhood Association. In fact, almost all of these should have an asterisk behind them. In the plan, it says, the asterisk means, indicates organizations represented on a CAC who were present for the 2015 Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Master Plan. So back in 2015, when we were doing this project for the entire regional park, we had all of these appointers, and we wanted to match that so it made the most sense. So I think there was just a little bit of a typo there. Some.
So this is from some copying and pasting from the source document.
Likely, yeah. In the master plan, it is correct. There were some school organizations that chose not to appoint somebody. We can only suggest that they do, we can't make them appointed. So.
Okay. Cecily?
So for the amendment piece of this long-range plan, is it eligible for funding through Met Council? For the golf course?
Parts of this are, the golf course itself not. If you want to elaborate, go ahead. My
I could
question.
certainly start with that, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Harris. Part of this plan amendment for Hiawatha Golf Course area is to change the proposed uses at Hiawatha Golf Course to expand it beyond just golf at the golf course. And so the park board is arguing or suggesting through this plan amendment that some of the uses that will come into this space are very regional park in character, from walking paths or multi-use paths to facilities that are very typical in a regional park unit. So that some funding might be available through the regional park system or through the Metropolitan Council, but others would be funded through other sources, through the Park Board's Enterprise Fund and otherwise.
It's good, because golf courses are monocultures, full of non-native grasses, requiring lots of water and lots of chemicals to maintain them. And, you know, this one, from what I read here, is basically created from dredge ponds, and I think it would be greenwashing to call it natural habitat. It's created habitat, this pond and such, and wetlands. So I would sincerely hope that the golf course itself would not be eligible for Met Council funds. I can appreciate what the Park Board wants to do, you know, for other recreational uses in this area surrounding the golf course. But the golf course itself, I really don't see as a regional park amenity.
And I was wanting to build on that. I know we have division of things that we will grant money to do work with, and we count visits differently. Do our enterprise facilities get excluded from our acreage assessments as well, or not?
Sure, so it's a good question. You know, typically enterprise facilities are excluded from those use counts, visitor counts, and funding associated with it. So when they're intermingled in a way that's being suggested in this golf course area plan, that could propose some challenges, or pose some challenges, I should say, in sort of the separation of those types of uses or counts.
Do you mind if I add?
Sure.
Chair and commission members. So the Park Board this is not new to the Park Board having a enterprise function within a regional park. Might draw a comparison to Theodorworth Regional Park, half in Golden Valley, half in Minneapolis, and it has a golf course that is not funded by the Met Council, and I don't believe we do regional park counts for people going to the golf course. I think it's mainly trails and park entry points, things like that. So this is not new to us. We absolutely don't expect the Met Council to fund essentially a for-profit, well, not for-profit, but a different type of asset that we have that kind of funds itself. We call it the enterprise fund.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at for council staff in particular, the visitor count part is relatively easy because we know when people check into do golf, they pay a fee to play golf. We know how many people are doing that. If acreage has to be counted differently, then we have some blurrier lines because it's not a one side of a fence, other side of a fence thing anymore. So essentially what I'm getting at is for the tricky part, that falls on staff. You're gonna be doing the tricky things. Eventually you're gonna come to us with a number of, here's the percentage that goes to Minneapolis. Does staff feel comfortable that you'd be able to somehow muddle out a way that makes sense when you have to do those kinds of things? Because having the interplay between the enterprise facility and the regional park facility makes a lot of sense, but it is administratively complicated. So I'm just wondering, for the people that actually have to do the administration, do you think you can do it?
Again, a very good question, Chair Russo. We are in the midst of a regional parks GIS improvement project where we are looking at these very questions about enterprise facilities, public waters, and related topics that are associated with our regional parks and park reserves, special recreation features, and regional trails. And we're moving into a second phase now that will go into those topics in further discussion over the next several months. Emmett, did you want to add to that? Is that
Chair, I just wanted to add that that's a great question, and the use estimate is something we do model out with staff at MPRB and the other 9 agencies. This is something where we agree to an approach on what are the entrances and exits we're going to use as we do the count. And so This does add a level of complexity, because it's going to be not only a golf course, but, you know, part of the regional park. And so the lines did get a little blurry in this plan. Yet I'm sure that we can come to some approach that will be amenable to both the park board and us. Like we've done it in other areas, so.
So if I can read between the lines a little bit, what I'm hearing is sort of the professional speak for, we have no idea how we're actually going to do it, but we're not going to object either. Like, if you tell us this is you want to move forward, you'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yes, Anthony.
So Tony, I mean, actually the question is important. Tony, how are you doing?
Good, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good to see you. In terms of the design, one of the things that is interesting is that the design will have a clubhouse that's multi-use. The clubhouse will be the focal point of entry into the system, period. It's not gonna, there's not, so I'm really interested in how they separate, how they do that, because it fundamentally will be designed so everyone goes there. And again, even, I'm really interested in terms of the funding, like there was a lot of attention. You all did a really intentional effort to separate enterprise revenue from the traditional revenue, and how they're going to do all that. Even the, I think you all refer to it as, you got enterprise activity sources, regional park maintenance and operation sources, and how we're doing that. But there's going to be a new restaurant there possibly, and how all that works. But the energy will bring everyone to that point, right? And so as you think about how you count, it actually doesn't seem like an incredible challenge. It almost seems like it's impossible. I mean, it just from a good design, and you're going to do a good design, because we got a lot of time to do this right? The other thing is there a plan? Is there a plan to either elevate that Hiawatha community that's happening around cross-country skiing, for example, where it feels very reminiscent of what was happening at Theo? You know, is there some plan of elevating that some programmatic element that actually gets at the real issues around equitable participation? Because I think that's the one thing that I really, and I think we agree intimately know, is that without some commitment, some presence there, it just can't happen, right? And there is going to be matter of fact, there has been a huge increase in participation, particularly in cross-country skiing at Hiawatha every year. It's growing. And we want to mountain biking there. I think we would probably do. But anyway, but you know what I mean. And actually, there's going to be additional traffic there because of the location relative to Minneapolis. So there's a really interesting exit point from Minneapolis Parkway to here, as opposed to going 10 Fish or going to Nokomis, right? This is kind of new opportunity, and I think you all see this. So I'm really interested in how they do the counts, and interested in how you all are thinking down the line around the programmatic elements there, not just first tee, not just black golfers, but and we're going to get a ton of funding, and we're going to use that to ultimately deliver on funding to get this done as well. So yeah, I'm interested in how that works, and what is the projection in terms of additional impact of a new vending relationship there. We don't have one now. And the impact of the new building in terms of attraction, because we don't have that now either. So what do you all think about how that's going to impact traffic, but also impact the operational budget? Because the 281 million, is it 281,000? Is that the operational number?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for the weird question, but you know what I mean.
No,
it just seems really.
It's all good. Chair and commission members. So those are really great questions, and questions we continually asked ourselves as we were working out this master plan. And there really isn't that definitive line that you can say or draw on a map that says we're not going to do anything within this area, and that's really intentional, because we want to be able to blend this space. We want it to balance, and we can no longer really operate spaces in our urban park system as a singular thing. They have to do a dozen different things. The golf course you know, we could shut it down for a weekend and have a festival on 3 of the holes. That's kind of how we've kind of spaced those areas out. So there is gonna be this blending. There is probably gonna be a lot of conversations between myself and our planning division and the Met Council staff here on how we go about, you know, putting a finer point on that. You know, thoughts around cross-country skiing. There were points where people had said, hey, we want this to be the Theodore Wirth Park of South Minneapolis, which it very well could be, because you've got people fat biking on the creek in the winter. You've got people cross-country skiing on the creek in the winter. And I haven't seen any ice fisher people out there yet, but that's one of my hobbies. So I do want to see more people doing more things out there in the winter. And that could happen like almost on the golf course. Certainly cross-country skiing, which would be, you know, a regional park use, things like that. So I guess my best answer is that blending things, having a fuzzy line is slightly intentional. And there are going to be some new spaces here that draw more people to the area. I think that's a goal for all of us really, as park professionals here, is to bring people to the parks and offer them a wonderful experience that they can keep coming back and being outside and getting healthy and stuff. So, you know, there's actually 2 buildings that are proposed here. One of them would be more clubhouse, like golf course clubhouse dedicated. The other one would be more community oriented, that would have, you know, community rooms. We think it could be a walkout 2-level type thing, so there could be community rooms. There could be a banquet facility. We're thinking about, you know, how do people walk up and, you know, grab a cookie and a beer or a soda or something. And I mean, we're even thinking about a dog patio where people could unleash their dogs and hang out if they so choose. So there's a lot of kind of things that we're thinking about here that are, you know, not totally seen in this area of South Minneapolis. You know, something that could really draw people in and introduce them to experiences that they haven't felt yet. The other really nice thing about this, I'm kind of rambling here, probably going beyond your question, but I just want to express the really intriguing thing about this gathering space is that we know that golf is slightly stagnant. It had an increase in 20 and 21 with COVID and everybody wanted to be outside, and we saw the numbers and that's fantastic. But we know that golf is relatively stagnant for people getting into the sport. And to be able to bring new people to the site for other reasons, they have a new exposure to golf in a way that they didn't before. We're trying to build this as kind of a introduction to golf type space where it feels comfortable and unintimidating for new golfers.
Cecily?
Yeah. I really like what you just said about the multi-use aspects of this plan, but I'm still fixated on the golf course. On page 16, it says that the plan will include incorporation of ecological restoration within the golf course and out-of-play areas. So for this wetland complex, I'm still concerned about herbicides and pesticides getting into this newly created wetland area. How will that be managed?
Chair and Commissioners, so we do have integrated pest management guidelines that our golf courses follow. And it's something that we would be looking to modify or kind of, I guess, customize to this property. We intentionally made 3 different spaces so that there's more edges, there's more, you're bringing nature into the golf course, there's more of that interstitial space for people to you know, experience nature, and it's not just one big green swath of mown grass, slightly how it is today. There are some pockets of wetland and such in there, but as far as pesticides and herbicides, they're required for a golf course. We're working on doing our best to minimize that. And quite frankly, it's less expensive to use less chemicals. So we don't wanna waste them. We don't wanna, apply them on a windy day and then have to do it the next day because that's just it's a waste of money. So we're really trying to hone our craft when it comes to applying those chemicals.
Is there any place that actually sells itself as an organic golf course? I mean, is that, is this an opportunity to, because I'm telling you, it's like wonderful having you, like holding that down because it is really interesting to think about this greenwashing, right, in terms of like this grand plan and doing all this, and there's a golf course in the middle of it, and even the the re-enlistment of the indigenous community relative to, the original, the wonderful acknowledgement that was done, all for naught, except that we're gonna bring back a golf course and we're just gonna lose less pesticide. Is this an opportunity to do something like we did on the north side with the first, natural filtration, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity, and is this something, from our perspective, that we wanna ask that additionally you go back with and look into? Because we are creating a bigger regional park. And no matter what we say, all the golfers are pissed. There's no happy golfers now around. Because we no longer have that, and we don't have an 18-hole golf course. Black people are mad, other golfers are mad. You made everybody mad already. So, why don't we just go for it now? I'm serious. I just think that it is going to become much more regional park in nature because winters are longer than summers. And even the way that you all have just the mandates. The golfers are chomping at the bit on March 15th to kick everybody out of work. Those contracts are really hard on when winter ends, when and snowmaking is going to come to Hiawatha. When we look long term, right? We're going to start making snow, which it all turns into. We're not backing up, people. This is the whole point, right? We're not backing up. There's significant community support for cross-country skiing that's happening down there. This is just real, right? And they are not going to back off. Black golfers can lose; they're not going to lose. I don't care what anybody. I'm just saying, So is this an opportunity for us? Would you take that on? And you all, and remember, even inside your team, you guys have amazing team members who would be down with us, right?
Chair and commissioners. So I like what you're putting out there. Honestly, we had looked at how we could make kind of an organic golf course, and there. I guess I can't point to a single one, specifically to one, but it is a possibility. I do have to weigh that against expectations of golfers here, because there is a pretty deep history that we do want to honor and keep here. And this is a golf space within the city, and it is not the entire regional park is for golf. So I do have to kind of respect what the golf community would like to see here, but I do think that there are certainly ways that we can make this a lot more sustainable, and that's basically why we're doing this project. We had floodwaters come in here in 2014 and flood out over 40 acres of this site, which is about a third of the site. And golf was suspended for a season and longer for I think the back nine. And that's something that we don't want to risk again, because we were able to do some work, fix it, get some money from FEMA. And that's not really an option anymore. So there's a lot at risk here that that this project is trying to save, and the golf course is one of those things. And I do like where you're going though with an organic or more sustainable golf solution here, and there's nothing but support for that type of thing in the master plan. I don't think there's anything
But
that
it's
would.
not called out in the master plan right now, is it?
It's not called out to be specifically non-pesticide or herbicide chemical use.
And I just Googled, there's only one.
Could
Organic
be.
golf
I was
course.
just Googling it too.
And I don't know about organic, but this is making me think about, I've heard of some instances of golf courses in the Southwest, like Arizona, having to do different things just because of availability and cost of water. And so they're not necessarily running normal turf grass. And what
And
it
they have
becomes,
seasonal grasses there too.
yeah, it's something where people can play a game of golf, but it requires them coming in with the expectation that it's a very different game of golf. Because of what I've heard is, like, when the ground gets really dry and hard, your ball will bounce for ages. And so it's a totally different strategy and you have to rework your game. So it's something where you can still use the facility for the game, but it definitely requires a mindset shift of the players if that's going to be what happens. Okay, if you're changing the surface, so like up here we have kind of the opposite problem. Sometimes too much water.
Right.
But if we go to some sort of like a short fescue kind of thing, it might be that your ball is more deadened. But yeah, it's something that's possible. But yeah, it would require some buy-in that I don't know that they currently have. Before you, Monica's been waiting.
Sorry. I was gonna say about that. I'm not an expert in grass at all, or a good golfer really. But Edinburgh in Brooklyn Park, I know they have a new gardener in charge, and what they did is start using native grass, and the grass in the green is way better now because it's easier to maintain and it's cheaper and it grows nicer than anything else. And if you play there, well, those are nice, good greens. If you go, Eagle Lake, well, good luck there. Which I was gonna go to Tony's point. I mean, there is no happy golfer. Why not just give us the opportunity to blame this native weed for the bad golf? I mean, I think it's great. I'll take it. Yeah, it's just a great opportunity. But I don't know. Something very peculiar that got stuck in my mind. Of course, you hear an accent. I'm from Mexico. I started golfing here in Minnesota, which is kind of totally crazy if you think about it. But the reason is, in average, considering the time that we have in summer and the time that we can golf, Minnesota is a state with more golfers per capita than is in the United States. So this is a game that, I have been there, my daughter is there, I see kids playing it all the time, and I love how it's coming. Which brings me to my question here, and I want to go to the other side. So I know the golf course is going to do good, and it's going to be profitable, especially nowadays, and we're, outdoor, and we're happy about that. So because we have so many blurry lines, can we just let the money from the profit golf course, rain down in our cross-country ski program or the ice rink that's going to be in winter? Because, and they contain for the regional parks, because, this is a regional park, so why don't just, the profit is going here instead of, the pro shop or something. So I like that.
I think you might find that the net of the money is the other way around for the golf courses.
Well, I know in Brooklyn Park, our only profitable is, Edinburgh, and Brooklyn does good, not so good, but I think it is a good one. I think last time we have, I don't know, like almost 600,000 turns. So or so, yeah. I think it's a good one, yeah. And it's crazy addictive, so yeah.
So you had something?
I was just going to ask about thank you, Mr. Chair, the connection with the schools. I'm a former school teacher. I'm also a former, how to phrase it, can't say golfer, but attempted golfer. Come from a family of golfers, and I've saved the world a lot of medical expenses by avoiding it. With a lot of encouragement from a college PE teacher. I think I scared the daylights out of her. But anyway, I was curious about the engagement with the schools and the interest that they have in it.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners, we did have one or two golf coaches that were involved in the project. One of them was on the CAC. They were very focused on the game of golf and having 18 holes as their preference. Beyond that, we did have, we attempted to have two other school-appointed members on the CAC from, I want to say it was Hale and one of the other schools, I can't remember, sorry. But we do want to make sure that this space, as I mentioned before, is, as the golf course, as a learning space. And with that, we would want to make connections and partnerships with those schools to open up this space to them for golf. Beyond golf, I think it would function really similarly to our other regional parks where we have programming and such that would support education. Specific programs, we just don't know what that is yet. But being able to basically, in a way, reverse course on this site to what it was before Theodorworth dredged, or Park Board dredged Rice Lake, Badapison, and they created the new Hiawatha Lake and armored shores with limestone block to stop the erosion because it's not really a natural lake. There's a lot of opportunity to bring people to a space that is more reflective of past landscapes than it currently does today. You go to the shoreline, there's a service road or an access road around the shoreline of Lake Hiawatha on the west side. And yeah, you get a glimpse of a lake, but it's 100% altered. The entire lake is 100% altered. So we want to be able to kind of reverse that and give some opportunity for folks, especially indigenous Dakota folks who live not even a mile up the road, and give them an opportunity to experience these spaces and partner with us on building these spaces. Because we're not interested in designing and constructing in a vacuum. We want to be able to invite people to say, hey, you should plant this here, or hey, you should do this here for this particular reason, and really be able to engage with those communities. And I can see that being all ages, to actually design this thing in much greater detail than we have here on paper.
Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up, I just want to make a pitch for that connection with the schools as it relates to golf or anything, but particularly with golf. You mentioned the surge during COVID. I know people whose kids, I live adjacent to what used to be a publicly owned golf course. It's now an empty space, and we don't know what's going to happen with it, but I won't go into that. And trust me, I won't go into that. But I have dear friends whose grandkids and kids, that was their gym, their phy ed class during COVID. And it was very, very beneficial to them. And I am the aunt of a very good golfer who at a young age, I think about 3rd or 4th grade, started learning manners as a result of the golf experience. His father was not going to have him out on the golf course if he didn't know how to lose and didn't know how to relate to other people. And so it was an opportunity for him to really learn manners and how to win and lose. And I think it's made a remarkable difference in his development. So to the extent that these opportunities can be made available to all children, I just think it's a great experience. It's a lifelong sport for those who grab hold of it, and I know many people who are in their elder years, they still treasure every moment they can get out on a golf course, so thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Sue's moving us a little bit out of questions, more into discussion. So before we do much more of that, I do want to bring up that we do have somebody from the public who asked if they could speak on this item. I'll remind you that this isn't actually a public hearing, so we don't have to do that, but our bylaws say that we can if we feel like our time allows and the commission doesn't object. They aren't actually here?
Sean did not make it.
Never mind. I had all of it. Otherwise, we could potentially have done that. All right,
Thank
well,
you for
then I
considering
won't go through that. Jeremy, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would say, Sue, that the First Tee Foundation does a really good job of reaching out to the kids in schools, and my children have started in golf through their outreach, and so that's really great to recognize that there are these organizations really trying to get kids interested. And I agree with the whole winning and losing thing, because I tell you, it's hard to teach a kid to be a good loser. They always want to win, but they're not very good at some stuff. Golf is one of those things. I mean, gosh, it can take a while to hit that tee. My question was at the forefront of my mind and I lost it. So I'll move the proposed action here.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second for that?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion that the Metropolitan Council approve the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Long Range Plan Amendment and require Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board prior to initiating any project at this location to send preliminary plans to the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services Interceptor Engineering Assistant Manager. Discussion on that motion.
I remembered my question.
Yes.
If I may. So this discussion about the golf course and this blending and merging that's kind of happening reminds me of the discussion we had maybe 2 years ago about state parks. Remember that? And so I'm thinking, you know, we've got these nature adjacent recreational opportunities that meet the needs of the community but are not necessarily nature-based recreation. And I wonder if we could do more in the parks policy plan to address that spectrum within that bridging facilities definition. To recognize how, yes, we have these areas that are sort of this blended experience. We're getting people to the parks, we're also exposing them to this fun way to recreate outdoors. And I'm curious if we could do more to capture that definition in a way that doesn't discriminate against some large facilities like golf courses or make loopholes for mountain bike courses or things like that. I want to make sure that we're inclusive in our description of what a bridging facility or park feature could be, but also respect the independence of park agencies to separate enterprise facilities if they'd like to. So that's something I was thinking about. I see the link between what Minneapolis is trying to do here with dipping the toe in sustainability and park exposure to the golf course while shrinking back the golf course, and some of what we talked about with the skate park. I don't recall which park that was, but...
It was actually a regional trail,
was a
also
trail.
from Minneapolis Park and Rec Board.
Okay, yeah, but I feel like that's kind of in the same vein,
Yeah.
and there's opportunity there.
Yeah, I don't think we'll attempt to actually speak to that, but certainly that the fuzziness of our lines is going to need to be one of our focuses in the next plan update. It seems like that's coming up several times. Cecily.
I was curious whether the commission would support me in doing a friendly amendment to encourage the Minneapolis Park Board to investigate sustainable practices with regards to maintaining the golf course lawn, or whatever the terminology is. Not demand, but encourage them to investigate.
The question of whether that amendment would be considered friendly would be up to the mover, which was Jeremy.
I would say that our discussion here adequately advises Minneapolis of that, and the recommendation and proposed action is a direction to the Metropolitan Council, not to Minneapolis. So I don't know that this action would be the proper party for that, but
Okay,
perhaps Tony can advise.
yeah, you're right.
You're probably right. We have had there are times where, like, so you'll see, for instance, in our number 2, we can have proposed actions to the council to direct to the park implementing agency. So you can do that, but yes, it does get a little bit weird, and we don't typically do a lot of that, but we have a representative from the park board here that can nod along and say, yeah, we'll look into that, but we're not committing to anything also.
I would agree with that.
Would you commit to that?
Right, and that's why I said encourage.
Well, and Tony, maybe you can offer some guidance on this from a procedural standpoint, and we can lean into this, because I really do think it is an opportunity. And I think from the perspective of us as community members in an advisory role, and I do think that we're, I think part of our, what our obligation is that we are representing community. Like that we are here on behalf of community, and is there a way that you would advise that we do that to put some, to really put some active way that we're pushing this information? I know Tyler's gonna tell them, right? He's gonna tell them strongly. I know that he personally, let's say just personally, is an advocate around those things. But what is it that we do? Where do we push a statement or and from an advisory role where we can address that? And is it pushing it to council, a statement from us to council, something from us to the park board? What do you think we do?
I think we certainly can do it. What I'm hearing from Jeremy is that he doesn't consider it friendly, so it would be, we could actually take it as a separate motion that we actually vote on.
Okay.
In terms of form, it would just be a third bullet point that, and we've often seen these in staff reports near the end, some extra stuff that I don't know if it actually ends up in the motion or not. But there's some suggestions by staff to go look at things like this that we've had in reports before. So it could just be something like that. You could figure out however you want to word it, if you'd like to make such a thing.
That works for me.
And would it be advised that, or good for us, because I do think Tyler's last point around the commitment to making it available to the original indigenous use of the land, I think in some ways those are in conflict for me. I think that Cecily's point about it, I feel like that a lack of commitment to minimizing the impact of a golf course on this land is actually in conflict to bringing back those original uses and making it applicable as a demonstration, as a usable site. Because part of this is they're saying that a significant indigenous community is less than a mile away and they could reconnect to traditional practices that are important and relative to them in this space, and there's runoff. And so I think, you know what I mean, it's like, I think it actually possibly gives us, again, additional fuel. If that is a commitment, how do we do that more, in a more committed way? And so that's what I would say relative to that. And again, in terms of recommendation and statement of how we propose that, what's your guidance on that?
Okay, so Cecily, would you like to make a motion to add a third bullet point to our proposed action at this point?
Well, I did, but
You asked if you could
But
make a friendly one, and we're kind of waffling on it,
what
so.
I heard, what I think I heard Jeremy say is that the proposed action is vet the Metropolitan Council.
Uh-huh.
So could it be that we would encourage the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to investigate, the use of, just trying to think, because you already have an IPM.
Maybe expanded indigenous uses. I mean, those uses were identified in the assessment, and so where's the rice stand? Are we attracting waterfowl, and could we do more with the wetlands to ensure that we create better habitat for that? What obstacles exist to really enhancing that particular use that was traditional for this?
Well, that's almost
Complex.
a different bullet, because I was more concerned about chemicals impacting,
Right.
the complex there. I agree with what you're saying, to make it more reflective of what we believe the ancestral peoples had there.
Can I just add, if you mind?
Sure.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So I will just note that the golf course is not the sole, sole source for pesticides and herbicides. We've got several square miles, I can't remember the number of that are in the watershed district, but basically all the way out to Victoria, Minnesota, all of Lake Minnetonka, all those lawns on the lake, all those lawns along the way, they're all contributing to, you know, our storm sewer system, which is basically Minnehaha Creek, and it all flows into, eventually actually into our new wetlands and Lake Hiawatha. Our wetlands they're designed to take out a couple hundred pounds of phosphorus a year, which is fantastic, but it's nowhere near the amount that's like going through this site. So I even though we would love to explore those options, and I can say right now that we will explore those. Everything's on the table. It is kind of a drop in the bucket for that type of thing, and I don't mean to be negative or anything, but there is a lot of water going through this site, and it's definitely not just the golf course. I think the golf course got a lot of kind of bad rap for. I think all golf courses kind of a bad rap for that type of thing, but. Just as bad are all the homes along the creek and along the shores of Lake Minnetonka, things like that. But even if you don't put a stipulation on here, we're gonna think about it. One of the goals of the master plan, that was the very first thing that the Board of Commissioners told us as master planners and as design professionals, is to basically build an ecologically driven golf course. And for me, that's not a traditional golf course, you know, with you know, perfect greens and tees and stuff. I can fully imagine us using different types of grasses that are better for the environment and more suited to this site, especially in the roughs and the fairways. Greens and tees might be a little bit more difficult.
I guess what I'd say at this point is if anyone wants to make a motion to add something, we can certainly take it, but it would need to be in an actual worded out form that Sandy could write down. So if you want to spend time thinking about how to craft that sentence, that'd be great. We can talk about other things while you do that, or if we want to just leave it as the discussion we've had, that's certainly fine as well. So while you think about that, one question I had, I'm not particularly familiar with this park unit, but the one thing that I've heard over this process through, you know, the internet and things, was the conversation particularly about black golfers and how this is a site that a community that has typically not been into golf has used. And the main change here, of course, is from 18 holes to 9. And some people are upset about that, but I'm wondering, is there anything particular about those changes that impacts us from an equity assessment negatively? Obviously, some people just would prefer a full 18 holes, but does it do something significant to our service to that community in particular? Does anybody in this room really know enough to speak to that?
I can say from the perspective of the community of golfers that love that place, own that place, I believe that they feel like significant harm has been done to them by taking away the 18 holes. I believe that they, and as a matter of fact, what's really interesting that really all of the commissioners on the other side of town voted against, and the only 3 votes against it were not the ones. It's a messed up bag, right? They do not feel like they were well served in this. Simultaneously, what I would say, Tony, I think, and I think in my conversation with commissioners and with the community, I think that the opportunity is being lost in this situation because what isn't stated is that Hiawatha was relegated to this community. There's an aspect of this that's really interesting, that it isn't that they were all open to it in the beginning, right? You know, it's like they weren't able to go to other golf courses as well. The other thing that is lost is that the significant African-American legacy middle-class community emerges out of South Minneapolis on 38th Street, which is right down the street from that. I think that we've gotten into a fight over 18 holes as the only way to do this, and I think that we've lost an opportunity to actually acknowledge a correction of wrongs done by the park board relative to segregation and alienation of the Black community in Minneapolis. That we're not actually increasing access to some of the best golf courses in the world that are tied to the Minneapolis Park Board system beyond Hiawatha. And even acknowledging Theodore Wirth Park as the other, I mean, Theodore Wirth Park has as strong a legacy connection to the African American golfers, to me, as Hiawatha does when we all get down to it. And we just got into a fight over the 18 holes. And so I think because that was really the fight, I think that the African American golfers do not feel served. And I think that ultimately, I think it's everyone, they do not feel like they were served in this. And so I don't know what we do next as an offering. We will put up plaques and we'll do all those things, but I think it would be, it really would be honorable for Minneapolis Park Board to think of something larger, some larger response. This is, it's actually great that you're here, Tyler, because you were connected to all these parks. We could do something stronger. We could do something, increase access to all of the golf courses in the system, that there are other statements of acknowledgement that can be made in bigger courses. There's an opportunity to make, one of the things that they're very concerned about is the loss of the bronze tournament, the ability to hold a bronze tournament at Hiawatha. I think there's a significant opportunity to offer the best golf course as a location for bronze tournament at no cost to them I think that there are things that the Minneapolis Park Board could do to actually address what ultimately comes as concerns and grow the future of Black golf in the Twin Cities and use the system-wide real power we have, some of those greens fees from the courses we love, right? I just think that we could actually fix this in a way that could be beneficial for the Black golf community, beneficial for Minneapolis Park Board in terms of equity, accountability, and commitments, for the new funding streams that have been identified. I mean, there's a lot in terms of Minneapolis Park Board that you all are doing, and I think that we got into a fight around 18 holes, and I think that, of course, and I will say honestly, as the environmentalist and the biker and skier, we needed to get rid of 18. I was like, okay, I know we're gonna do this, right? If this was just about the environmental conversation and the Black golfers had not been part of the conversation, it would have happened much quicker and much more easily. And that's real. So Tony, that's why I was kind of saying, look, Black golfers ain't gonna be made whole with 9 holes, period. There's almost nothing we can do. And so now it becomes an active role for Minneapolis Park Board to use their resources to show ways that they are committed to building a legacy around Black golf in their entire system. The ways that they will acknowledge the rights, the wrongs they have done historically relative to Black people and Black golfers in terms of our relationship to open space. And I think those are really real opportunities for the Park Board. And again, there's nothing we can do at Hiawatha to make Black golfers feel whole now, because 18 holes was really the only solution. I don't know if you feel like that was made up, but I mean, short of 18 holes, there was really nothing it can do. And so, that's where they are. That's where that community my conversations with them and where they are right now.
So am I kind of catching the history here correctly, that it's not so much that Hiawatha had some particularly interesting draw or outreach to the Black community, it's that they were actively banned from other places, and this is the one place that they were even allowed. So they've said a lot, they've really invested in this is our place because it was the one place that was available at all. And now other places may no longer have rules that actively prohibit the Black community from using them, but we haven't done the legwork of also feeding them into them and making them feel welcome. And that's kind of what we need to do from here to build out, like, okay, yes, environmental factors restrict this down to 9, but we need to have a way of making you feel like you can go use these other 18s elsewhere now in a way that you couldn't before, and make that okay.
I think that we could do that as a response to the fact that they're losing the 18-hole opportunity, and they built community there. I think that's the other thing that happens, is that you know, segregation itself, it was a challenge, and within those geographic segregated communities, community was built. I think there's not even acknowledgement that's what I'm saying. You have to know where the park is at 46th and Cedar. Basically, if you get to 46th and Cedar, you have to go into the park. Basically, 48th and Chicago is the south boundary of the legacy African American community that evolved in South Minneapolis as a result of redlining that happened, right? And so there's a way where, again, cultural communities have built, you know, community using culture as a foundation. The golfer that they love and they name was someone who was not allowed to play with a PGA license. I mean, there's a long legacy. This results from this, right? That again, there's a narrative, I think, in terms of how we can tell a story that is more complete. And again, because we really got stuck on is it 18 or not? I mean, that was really the resolution. We really kind of missed that, and I think the golfers themselves, and Tyler, I'm not picking on the park board. I will say that I think they also lost sight of the bigger opportunity, right? Because it really 18. That was it. That was the only thing. Are we going to get 18 or not? It was really not an opportunity. They really didn't take that. So, all that said, I think, to your question, yeah, I don't think there is nothing that comes of this plan that will make the black golfers necessarily feel whole relative to what they had at Hiawatha Park.
Sure, so it might be stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into a site plan, but there's something else that has to happen as a follow-up.
And I think it could. I think like what I'm saying. I think it is an opportunity if we think about it in terms of, again, something around acknowledgement, something about a complete telling of a story, and then again an active utilization of Minneapolis Park Board resources to support the end goals of the black golf community. Because what they were saying is their goal is to introduce young people to golf, to diversify who uses golf, and create a sense of belonging for that community. And I think if they approach it from achieving those objectives with Minneapolis Park resources, I think we create a stronger outcome from this this event.
Yeah, and I have no idea what that would be, but it may be that something along those lines would be something that could come back to us as an equity grant application someday.
That's a really great recommendation.
Yes, Jeremy?
I was gonna say, the equity grant thing, as well as this is a vacant district right now, so perhaps outreach could be targeted to that group to see if they'd like to join us as part of the representation. It says District D vacant
Until next month.
until next month.
Yes,
Got
we
it.
did get applicants for that one.
Okay,
Todd's is the only district that we don't have anybody lined up for.
got it.
But yeah. But yeah, we actually got several
Just
applicants
the
for
same,
District
if
D.
there is
Yeah.
someone from that group that
Yeah,
happens to live in Todd's district, that might be helpful too.
that
No.
would, yeah. I had another thought, where'd it go? Oh, just a comment to staff, there is a bunch of stuff in this plan about cross-country skiing and fat biking, and we talked about possible snowmaking and all that, and I just want to harp again on the fact that we probably need better data in the future about our winter uses as compared to our summer ones, and potentially breaking those down on a per park basis to know how they differ, because we have wildly different levels of winter facilities. So some of our formulas are a bit lacking. And I'm just gonna keep saying that until something changes. And I know that it might never, because you don't have extra money to do extra things for that, so I might just say it forever.
You should just get it from the golf course.
Have you shared Hiawatha usage numbers for winter with us recently? I mean, it's
For winter, I'm not sure if we've had usage numbers for winter. I think we're in the same boat. We often neglect to really think about winter stuff, even though it's here for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months out of the year.
and
I do find stunning how in Minnesota people avoid to think about winter. It's like, because it never happens.
If we don't acknowledge it,
We
it
just
doesn't exist.
deny of existence. Yeah.
And this would be a great year. Natural snow,
Yeah.
totally. Hiawatha is all about natural snow. There are people buying trail passes in the other parts of the system because Hiawatha is where they're skiing right now. So
Good.
you have something on it?
Just very quickly, to give you hope for the future, we do have an active streetlight research project, which is using location-based, cell phone data that gives real-time information. And where we don't have, where there's still a little work to do is like converting that into actual numbers, like this many people visited. But where it's really strong is showing the proportionality of use. So I think it's really a promising technology to give us better information about use throughout the season. Because right now, as you know, our seasons are all based on multipliers that are rooted in counts during the summer months.
So even if that doesn't replace our manual counts for the overall stuff, it might give us significantly better multipliers for adjustment of seasonal use.
In the future, there is hope.
Okay.
Right, and I would wonder if the Met Council doesn't have the funding to do a usage study of not only the numbers of people and what they're doing, maybe one of the local universities might be able to put something together. I don't know what class that would be.
Yeah. Part of the trick is that we need it done regularly, not as a one-time.
Well, but if they set up the
But maybe-
methodology for a winter survey,
Yeah.
is it, intersect surveys, is it online, is it written, whatever it might be.
Or it might be also just figuring out, for data sets like streetlight, doing just more number crunching for us of how does that apply to what we have, because we have, one, maybe two data people on staff available to us here at the council, which, I'm sure they're awesome, but they're also only one or two people. So might be, some of that could be delegated somehow.
That we actually have moved our parks researcher into the research unit. And that was significant because initially it felt like a loss, but currently it feels like a real gain because we have a number of people working on parks research now. Probably upwards to 6 people.
Oh.
So it's a different game today.
Okay.
So.
All right, we are going kind of long on time on this, but is there anything else we need to cover before we move forward?
I think we're moving as presented.
Okay. No amendments feel urging need to,
I don't think so. I'm just hoping while they're raising that 42 million that they'll be thinking about these subjects.
What's 46?
I think that's fair.
46, 42, whatever it was.
43.
What's a few million to
Yeah,
sweet friends, right?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Sue.
I did a little Googling and it's Martha's Vineyard where they have the organic golf course, and I think maybe a field trip there by then. When the summer weather arrives would be an appropriate thing.
I'm available.
And for anybody listening, I'm being sarcastic. Or funny, I don't know, one of the two.
What you really mean is during.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, so just to remind you then, our motion on the table is just the 2 proposed actions from the staff report as presented. All in favor of those, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you for putting up with our grilling.
No, thank you very much, really appreciate it.
All right. That moves us on to our information item, and speaking of equity things, this is our equity nudge for the month. We're getting an update on an Anoka County Augmented Reality Equity Grant. We have a couple of different people marked on our agenda, so go ahead and say your name for the record and let us know who you are.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Nicole Greenwell. You can call me Nikki, and I'm the Communications Supervisor for the Anoka County Parks.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I was going to introduce this, Amanda Lovelee wanted to be here, but she wasn't able to. But we just really appreciate you coming down today along with Karen Blaska to talk about your equity grant. And it was a really innovative idea that Anoka County pursued, working with, I believe, high school students to to use augmented reality in the parks. So this is our February version of the Equity Nudge, and we really appreciate Nikki and Karen being here, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emmett. Yeah, so if you can't tell, I am very excited about this project and am so grateful for the opportunity to, create this in the Anoka County Parks. So a little background about me. I went to school for graphic design, and so that's where all of this technology kind of inspiration started. Back in college, augmented reality was just beginning, and so the technology wasn't there yet to be utilized by the public. It just was, one, very expensive and just hard to get your hands on. So after the Youth and Parks Survey came out from the Met Council, that kind of reignited that spark for different creative ways to bring youth into the parks, and what better way than technology. So after doing some further research, my kind of dream is becoming a reality. And yeah, so I am very excited, and we will keep moving forward. Let's see if I got this. So this trail is the first of its kind in Minnesota. Super excited to be a front leader on this because I think it's going to just expand the educational and outreach opportunities for regional parks and trails throughout the system. As Emmett stated, we are inspiring youth and encouraging them to get outside and visit the parks. Something in that youth in parks survey was that a statement that youth didn't necessarily want to use their phones as like a distraction when they were out in parks, but they wanted to use that as a tool to engage and like educate. And I think when I read that, it correlated very well to this trail and this project, because it's going to provide an innovative, equitable, and educational experience for all. A little bit about what who the trail will serve. We're focusing on the youth through technology, but there are also different applications in this trail program that can help other populations as well access and be integrated in with nature in maybe ways that they haven't before. The Hispanic population will be served through translation in the app. Hearing impaired folks will also be able to read and see the visual animals and plants along the trail. And people with accessibility needs. Maybe, someone hasn't really been able to get out and use one of those really cool, wheelchairs that the state has right now, but with this tool, it is going to bring a sense of that nature right there alongside the trail for them. Let me see. So this next slide is just showing you a little bit more about the accessibility functions within the app. You can see here a few of the different options that you have to choose, and Spanish translation will also be an option. I am currently working on that right now, so that is why we are launching this in a few months. Just finishing up some final details and making sure it's ready to go. But through the accessibility, there's auto captioning, there's dyslexia, high contrast fonts, and other things that you can see there on the screen. So, how does it work? Well, the best way to help you guys understand is to show you a video. And I think it skipped over that.
I can try.
There should be a video slide next.
There should be a
Hi, my name is Nikki, and welcome to Bunker Hills Regional Park. Walk with us today through a virtual adventure to explore the amazing plants and animals who call this park their home, or used to. While enjoying the trails, stop at points along the way and use your mobile device to learn about the plants and animals that are important to this park and its history. Thanks for coming out and exploring the unique habitats and wild spaces you can find right here in Bunker Hills Regional Park. Once numbering in the tens of millions, North America's largest mammal, the bison, roamed free across the grasslands. They were important to the health of the prairie ecosystem and source of life for Native American tribes such as the Dakota people. If you listen closely, you might hear the loud, rattling bugle call of the sandhill crane.
Thank you. Okay, so obviously I don't want to give away all of the points and let you see it all, but that was a little sneak peek preview of the different points, and I'll go through all of them here just in a picture version so you can see kind of what we have in this first trail. But something that you saw in that video right away was this sort of app interface. So the user, after they download the app, you can choose your accessibility features right away or continue to press start and it will bring you into the Bunker Hills Regional Park Trail. In the future, hoping to add more parks to the list, taking these trails in different ways, such as, you know, historical, cultural, different avenues like that. You know, maybe we do a African American celebration of, you know, February that month. Something to that effect. And I think that's really exciting because it is so interchangeable and flexible and the possibilities are endless, which is exciting. So you couldn't really tell maybe in the video, but after you click Start Adventure, your phone is actually going to ping to you, send you a notification when you reach another point along the trail. And so you don't have to have your phone out the whole time while you're walking. It will automatically say, hey, there's another AR trail point here that you might want to check out. So you can pull up your phone and you click on which point you're at. A newer version of the app already has a trail line so you know which loop you're taking and where you are going. And with that, you get to that final fourth screen, which is the kind of lets you know a little bit about the point, but also that's where you start the AR experience. You click on the bottom. I think you kind of saw maybe those little like triangle crosses show up, and after that shows up, you then tap again and it will place the 3D animation or object. Oh, got it. So, I can kind of snap through these pretty quickly, but we have 10 points along this first trail. You saw the full introduction. The next point is talking about prescribed burns and prairie restoration, the importance of that. The next is a tiger salamander. Then you can see a pollinator point, specifically kind of highlighting the monarch butterfly. And the fifth point is the bison. And you can see on there too, after the first little introduction plays, some extra points pop up on the bison. This happens with a few of the points along the trail. And it will just, after you click on that, it will tell you additional information about that specific feature, or it will bring up another image or video that specifically describes something more in depth than what you could get in the little introduction. The final 5 points is the Sandhill Crane, courtesy of the Bell Museum, which was super generous of them. Have definitely helped our dollars go a little bit further in creating these points. Then we have a hognose snake. We have a soil ecosystem explanation and a flying squirrel, and then finally a conclusion, which also has a call to action in that, stating that, you know, the best thing you can do to remember the things that you learned today is by telling someone else. So we're really hoping that that is going to drum up a lot of engagement and interest, and everybody will want to come and check out the trail. The app also has some cool interaction features with it. You can go in and take a selfie with the 3D animated objects. And so with our little brand on there, we're hoping people share this across social media. We also tell them to use the hashtag Anoka County Parks. And yeah, I think it's just gonna be another fun little thing hopefully people are gonna wanna go take selfies with. All right, and with that, I have one last little thing that I would like to say, but with creation of this trail, we're hoping to create, you know, a curiosity and sense of ownership to these public lands and parks, and hopefully, you know, that will spark future generations of leaders for parks and trails. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I have a series. That's interesting. In terms of how the app actually works, are you able to download the trail content ahead of time, or do you actually need an active internet connection while in the park?
Very good question. You are able to download that ahead of time, and thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Chair, because I forgot to mention we also will be having 2 iPads available for checkout at our activity center, which is at the start of this trail. And so reducing that equitable factor, people can come in and check out an iPad and use the trail and return it. But if you want to use it on your own phone, it should work with all Apple and Android devices.
Okay. See, I think Bunker Hills itself probably has decent cell service, but there's some other places in our system that definitely don't. So that's good to know. I'm also wondering, you're talking about doing some translation into other languages now. In order to, again, make dollars go further, I'm wondering if there's a way for community members that may be interested to assist with translation on their own and kind of submit a translation into another language on their own somehow. Is there an open platform way of doing that?
That's a very good question. I think, you know, that would have to come to our staff first. Our staff is going to have some capabilities on the kind of backside of the app where we will be able to make some changes and updates to content. But the organization who we are working with, Time Looper, they have been very accommodating so far, so I think they'd probably be open to something like that if we brought it to their attention as well.
Sure. I'm thinking of the 2 things I'm aware of are for text translation of software. Some open software projects have a way where, like, they say, here's the string in English, you can submit your proposed translation into whatever language, and then someone else, you know, there's an approval process before it actually gets shipped out, but there's a laid out way that someone can say, okay, this is what they need translated, here's my translation, here you go if you'd like it. Similarly, I think on like YouTube, you can do user-generated closed captioning, where you just have the video and someone can say, oh, I have time to caption this video, and they'll type things up and it'll go to someone, they can review it and then say, yeah, that looks cool, thanks for that, and now publish it. So I just don't know if there's a way to kind of get it packaged down in a way that someone would be able to even submit something, or if it's, you'd have to really be on staff to even know how to start.
Right. That's a very good question, Mr. Chair.
Something to maybe follow up with the vendor on. Is there a way to do that at all? I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, that might be something that they would love to hear about and potentially work into their app too. They, I believe they said they are the first in the country to create kind of an app like this specifically for trails and outdoor spaces. But I really like that idea, and I will follow up with them.
And my one other comment before you go to it, as a digital thing that is not actually bound by land boundaries or necessarily political ones, this seems like an opportunity to me where we could potentially have this across implementing agencies. Like, right, okay, this is good. Karen is nodding, not going, you're getting on my turf. Okay, because yeah, and having Anoka County Parks branding on the parks that are in Anoka County makes total sense, but it would be great if we could have install one app and then click on to which IA you're in, which park you're going to, and things like that, rather than like somewhere down the line someone says, oh, that was awesome, and so now Dakota County is going to use the same technology, and do you need two apps? That would seem a little bit silly, but if we can kind of start blending that as a way of showing the regionality of it and building on, you know, you had $2 million to do this, some of that's specific to the trail and some of it's just the platform. So if we can just reuse as much as possible, that would be awesome. And then you can figure out how to do dual branding of yourselves and Met Council and whatever else that, I don't care as much about how you implement that, but Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first met Commissioner Taylor on the Governor's Council for an Age-Friendly Minnesota, and I just want to do a pitch for you to do outreach with folks in those older years. I think this would really be appealing to them. First of all, it would bring back lots of memories, but it would be a great activity for them as well. So initially, when I first started listening to this, or watching this, I was thinking of kids and what a great tool this would be for classrooms. But the older generation's gonna love this too, so.
That's true. And if you think about what demographic goes walking around like with guidebooks and actually reads all the signage and things like that, it's often the older ones, and they're more capable of handling the technology bits than they were 20 years ago. So, yeah.
As long as they've got nieces and nephews who will help them.
Depends on, at this point now, we're getting retirees that grew up on electronics, so it's been around long enough that it's more native. Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the Bell was cooperating with you. I hope that you can share this with them and they can learn from it with their atlas of the state of Minnesota wildlife and all of the data they've collected with the different resources we have around the state. I think the Science Museum also has something like that, the Living Atlas of Minnesota, something like that it's called, I forget, or Biodiversity Atlas. That's a ENRTF funded project, I think, and it could benefit from translation through an app like this where regardless of where you are in the state, you could get location-based information about wildlife that call that area home. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it.
Thank you. That's great. Cecily?
Yeah, well, I really like this, and something that Sue said really triggered my mind is, you know, if you think about MIA and some of the art museums, the audio tours are so popular. You see fewer docents out there leading the groups around. And I know an audio tour is different than augmented reality, but it sort of tells you that people want additional information. And so I really love the thought about when you have time and money to add a history track, you know, with indigenous and early settlers and all of that, or a culture track. So people, when they got to the park, they could pick which they'd be interested in, or the next time they come back, do a different one. Whether it's the same trail or whether it's a different trail.
The ability to walk the exact same physical trail 3 times and get 3 totally different experiences.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
like a
super
park
interesting.
podcast.
Yeah.
Layers.
Right. Brings you back.
Yeah. I love how easy this would be to expand over time. Like, yeah, obviously you're probably thinking, oh my God, I just put in all this work, I'm getting rid of it, and that's fine. But there's just so much stuff that you can do with it with relatively little overhead. It's not like you have to go out and build a whole new thing in the park kind of stuff. It's like, if you want to add one thing this week, you can just do that. And having the geolocation, I'm thinking of other stuff that I've used, kind of smartphone-based things outdoors for, like plant identification. It's take a picture of a leaf and sometimes it can tell you what it is. Well, if you build in the geolocation thing, you can be like, we know that we have a buckthorn infestation in this spot. We can just have a thing in our app that says, what you're looking at here is buckthorn. Here's why it's here, and here's why it's bad, and here's what we're doing about it. And link off to all sorts of things about it. Yeah, that's cool. Yes.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yeah, thank you for your feedback, and I do want to let you know that we are thinking of having and hopefully going to have, 2 to 3 of these trails within each park that has been talked about. And so I also really like that idea of possibly having more, agencies within the same app. Something that you're not able to see yet because we only have one trail right now, but you can choose different trails. Like some park agencies in like California, for example, have multiple trails listed in their virtual adventure app. And so we are currently still picking the overarching name of the app because what we wanted was not available. So back to the drawing board, and yeah, but that's definitely something to keep in mind, for future use. Thank you.
I guess one other thing would be to try to make sure you have something on the ground that lets people know that this exists while still maintaining the flexibility. Like when you were first going through and you had points, my brain was thinking, well, could they be a post there with the post number and a QR code? But then if you're wanting to add points periodically throughout, well, you don't necessarily want to have to go out and put a new one, so you'll have to have some, like, at the beginning, maybe something partway, some sort of balance between those, but yeah, obviously something like, hey, by the way, there's a bunch of augmented reality stuff here, here's how you get your app if you aren't already carrying our iPad. Which obviously then would depend on having internet service, but for the places where you can do that, if that makes sense.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are planning on having a introduction sign at that first original point. But I was, kind of excited to not have many more signs pop up throughout the park system because it might take away from the experience a little bit too. So when, this kind of opportunity was presented to create the trail in this way, we were excited about that, to not have as much signage as.
Yeah, it seems a lot like have something at a trailhead or visitor center facility to say, like, before you head out, load yourself up, and which brings me to the point of this is one area where having some sort of Wi-Fi available at visitor centers is kind of useful because it can be like, hey, if you're going to go do this, get your data before you go if you didn't do it at home already. In addition to us being able to have meetings there. Anyone else? Yeah.
When do you think it's gonna be available? I have plans already, so.
Yeah, I'm hoping, end of March, early April. So very soon.
Okay. Cool. I love it.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
How much did you spend so far?
Just over 40,000.
That's nice. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you guys very
Thank
much.
you. That looks pretty exciting.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us on to the reports section of our meeting. To recap, for anyone that hasn't read your email from the last couple of hours, and as we alluded to, we do have new commissioners coming in. We are in the midst of what's called the legislative consultation phase of that, where there's a statutory requirement that as we pick people, we go and talk to the legislators for those particular districts. It's not something that the entire legislature votes on or anything, but we approach the particular senators and representatives for the areas involved and kind of run our picks by them and see if they have any feedback for us. So staff is trying to make sure that they have enough time to give that feedback, which is why we weren't able to seat those people today. We are expecting to be able to do that in March. So that will fill up all of the seats except District H. If anyone is listening and lives in Dakota County or a little bit of eastern Scott County, we are looking for applicants from that area. So District H, there's a map on our website. You can go check that out. Applications are through the Secretary of State's office. If you don't understand how that works, feel free to reach out to myself or Emmett and we can walk you through it. There's obviously other legislative stuff that I'll let Emmett get into. Is there anything else I need? Oh, and I'm sure, you know, as Jeremy keeps harping on, contact your legislators to ask for renewal of the ENRTF amendment. Cecily, other commission members.
For the overview, I'm curious for people who are seeking reappointment, do you contact our legislators? Because I don't think my state senator would have anything nice to say about me.
I believe we do contact them. I don't know what feedback we get or what we do with that feedback, but.
And it goes two ways. I live in a red county.
Yeah. But yeah, we do reach out in some form for everybody.
Yep. Sometimes we hear back, sometimes not.
But my new house member.
We probably ought to rethink that next time, because I wonder if maybe it would be more useful if the legislative consultation started at the beginning in order to help them prompt people to apply. It's like for our District H situation, I wonder if the legislators would be people that might know someone that should apply.
We have Mayor Dingle working on this, Chair.
That works too.
I've hit up quite a few of the mayors and county commissioners that I know in that district and asked them for help. So nobody's pounded on my door yet, but or sent me an email, but I just did it this afternoon. So cross our fingers and hopefully we'll get somebody good in here. But
I do know the visitors director or whatever for IGH, and I can reach out to him and see if he'd be interested in doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, and always can say, even if you aren't going to apply yourself, that's another person who might know somebody. Sure. Like if we get to the stage of, you know, a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, 4 stages down the line, maybe someone can get an application in. That's all I have. Any other commission members? Yes, Cecily?
Yeah, Washington County is having its 4th Technical Advisory Committee for the Middle St. Croix Regional Trail at the end of February.
Okay.
Shaping up.
I'm guessing you're sitting on that again?
Yes.
Excellent.
which trail was that?
Middle St. Croix Regional Trail.
This is the stretch
It's
from
Afton.
Boom Site to Afton?
Yeah. It's something remarkable, like 18 jurisdictions over 17 miles. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, because we have a bunch of these tiny
I
little
was gonna say,
cities.
it's the double counting of the township model.
And a substantial portion of what's likely to end up in this is actually already built. There's several trails on the ground, and they have to question, you know, is this part of what's going to be the alignment, or is it going to go somewhere
Well,
else?
and that's part of the dilemma.
Yeah.
You know, you may have to retrofit some of those to bring it up to regional trail standards. It may be like a
Right.
cow path now.
Yes, there are some places where something exists, whether it should be the corridor or not is debatable, and whether, and if it is, it would need to be rebuilt, but sometimes that's easier than finding a whole new right-of-way. But yeah, that'll be, I mean, there'll be some really cool, like, long-term loops happening in Washington County, because they've had just a couple of trails, but what they're doing is there's a couple of north-south things and a couple of east-west things that are all gonna kind of stack on each other, so you can choose, you know, if you wanna go 4 miles or 14 miles or 40 years from now, it's going to be pretty cool. And it's actually moving along at a little bit faster pace than most places. So it's neat. Our council liaison had to take off to another meeting, so she obviously doesn't have a report for us. Staff.
Chair and Commissioners, I just have a quick update on the legislative session. We are in the middle of things. There's just a lot going on right now. I wanted to start with the governor's proposal. Good news for our operations and maintenance program. The governor has recommended a $2.5 million per year increase, so that would be about $12.5 million for each year. It's getting closer to that 40%. We still have a ways to go. I'll just mention the agencies' sort of competing bills or they have an operation and maintenance bill in for $40 million a year, and they have introduced that. And I have all the numbers if people need any of that. The state parks, or excuse me, the Parks and Trails Legacy Program, that is a recommendation from the governor to continue the 40% to the Metro regional system, 40% to DNR, and 20% to the Greater Minnesota regional system. That's Parks and Trails Legacy. The Regional Parks Bonding Program, the governor has recommended a $3 million system-wide appropriation that would be matched with $2 million in council funds for a total of $5 million.
What was that for?
That was the Regional Parks Bonding Program. And then the fourth thing, which is kind of new and interesting, is a $12 million recommendation for modernization of our regional park system. So this is separate from the bonding program, and it would focus on it's sort of helping ameliorate the impacts that COVID had on our regional system. The idea that the systems were heavily used, so it can go for trail maintenance, restroom maintenance. There's a huge emphasis on climate resilience and flooding.
Does it have accessibility?
It has accessibility too. So it's really a host of things. I think of it almost as a subset of what is the bonding, traditionally known as the bonding program. But so
Is that entirely funded by bonds, or does that also have some just general appropriation funding behind it?
I think this is one-time funding that would be funded through the surplus. So it's general fund.
Okay.
And the council will match it.
So
the recommendation is it would be matched by 8
So
million.
our intention would be to match it the same way as if it was bonds, but it might actually come in with different strings attached because it might not actually be bonds.
I think it's the surplus money, which would be general taxation revenue, so general fund. That's my understanding.
Right. Which is, point being, that has different rules,
Yeah.
which are potentially more liberal for some uses, which I don't know if it'll apply to any of this stuff, but it could become relevant for something.
It is new funding source, and to your point, it will require like new grant agreements and things like that we don't have yet. So we're working out the details.
Okay.
So question, so if it's general rather than CIP, could we expand the equity grants program, for example?
I don't think with this funding source we could, because it did not, it really, because it's one-time funding, people are thinking about it as if it was capital funds, even though the source is not bonded.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it'll come down to whatever the legislative language actually is, which I think you're saying this is currently only in the governor's proposal,
Yes,
right?
right.
Which means that there is no legislation currently that reflects this, so who knows?
You'll have to wait till May for
But-
that.
Yeah, but presumably there will be a legislative appropriation that says, not only is this where the money's coming from, but this is what it shall be used for, and how that sentence is written will guide what we can and can't do with it, and so, up in the air.
Chair, we have developed a little one-page fact sheet for all of these requests that I can send to all of you, just to, because it fills it out a little bit more than I did, and probably more succinctly too, so.
Yeah, and the main thing that I would want to see is if we are treating it as fundamentally a capital improvement program funding source, we want to make sure that it goes through the same formulation, distribution stuff as everything else. And we've had an increase in recent years of stuff being kind of parceled off to individual agencies by legislators wanting to be able to point to something for their district, and we kind of need that to stop so that the agencies that are trying to play by the rules are getting their fair share. So hopefully it just comes through as a lump sum, this amount to this program, and then we can distribute it the way that it says in the parks policy plan rather than something else.
Well, it's just exciting if modernization, if that could be interpreted as operations and maintenance as opposed to new building.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, is that all?
That's all, thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I think with that then, we can be adjourned.